Hello, everyone. Welcome to Vanished Chicagoland Stories, the podcast. I'm your host, Pete Costanis, and today's date is August 29th, 2021, and this is episode 54, season 3. And we have an interesting show coming up, and right now we're going to go into a commercial break, and this program is sponsored by K-Tel Record Selector. And here's a commercial from 1972. Enjoy.
Are you fed up with constantly searching for the records you want? Are you tired and frustrated from always straightening out your LPs? Now with K-Tel Record Selector, this will never happen again. To choose your favorite music, tilt the first record forward. The others follow automatically. Pick your selection when it appears. To choose more LPs, lean the next record forward and wait for your choice. The Record Selector is a new space-age design for selection and storage of records. Fingertip control regulates the speed of Record Selector. To replace the records, tilt the first record forward. Record Selector, with a mind of its own, will automatically stop where the LP was taken from. End awkward selection and storage of LPs with Record Selector, attractively finished in a gift box. K-Tel Record Selector, only $3.99.
Okay, I'm back. I hope you enjoyed that commercial for K-Tel Record Selector. I remembered this commercial very well. If you were collecting record albums in the 60s, 70s, even earlier than that, but mostly the 70s, they had this product out, and they used to advertise it on television with other K-Tel products, but, like also records. They had a wide selection of that. And it looked pretty cool, but I didn't know. I never had this, and I never knew anyone who did. So it looked like it worked to me based on viewing the commercial. Well, you never know. But I think you can find these on eBay very easily. I imagine you can. Okay, we have an interesting show coming up. Let's see. I'm going to talk about three things. First, I'm going to talk about the Avon Theater that was located in Chicago on the northwest side. We have the television cartoon Space Angel, and that was broadcast in the early 1960s. And then last, and I saved the best for last, is Ernie Banks from the Chicago Cubs, from my memories of him. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the Avon Theater first. Now, a lot of people who lived on the, what's that neighborhood, almost close to Logan Square neighborhood on the northwest side, would remember this, not a very big theater, but it was a very nice theater. That was located at 3327th West Fullerton Avenue. And it was by almost at the corner of Fullerton and Kimball. And let's see, it opened in 1914. It's a very old place. And then it was originally built for the Lynch circuit, and then it closed about maybe a few years, and then it reopened in 1935. Then I wrote a story on my blog at Vanished Chicagoland blog about the Avon Theater. The reason I did this is during the 1960s and 70s, they screened Greek language films. And a lot of people from my neighborhood or the Greek community where I go to church, they used to travel to this theater to watch movies. Even if you live on the north side of Chicago, south side, suburbs, they went to this theater. There was another theater that did that. It was called the Commodore. And that was located, I think, on Irving Park Road. I don't know where exactly it was, but I have to look that up. I might talk about that in a future episode. And I remember the first time we went there, I probably was in the early 1970s. And my parents did not drive, so we had to travel by public transportation. And we lived in Roseland neighborhood on the south side at the time. So let's see. I'm trying to remember how we got there. I think we took the Dan Ryan. Yeah, we took the L train on the Dan Ryan and traveled downtown, and then we took the Howard line, which is probably called the Red Line back right now, or the Green Line. It could be the Red Line or the Green Line. And then the train took us to Fullerton Avenue, and then we got off at Fullerton, and then hopped on the 74 Fullerton bus, and then traveled west and got off at Kimball, and then we arrived at the theater. And according to the article I wrote on my blog, this was published on June 7th, 2020. You can find it on vanishchicagoland.blog. And the reason is that this theater was advertised during a television show called the Hellenic Theater. It aired on WCIU TV, Channel 26, every Sunday night at 7 o'clock. My mother watched it all the time, but the thing is, me and my brothers could not watch television because we only had one television at the time. It was a black and white, and we got angry about that because there were some great shows on Sundays. Well, it's her house and it's her television, so we had to wait till 9 o'clock. And the host of the show was, his name was Bobby Papademos. And he would advertise local Greek businesses, mostly Greek restaurants, travel agencies, car insurance companies, very local businesses in the Chicagoland area. He was according to my mother, he was a very smart man, and he was very entertaining. And he also had a band on the show. And I remember he would say every time every time the band would perform, they would invite a singer who was Greek and performed, and he would say "beautiful, beautiful," and it'd be funny. And then a lot of the kids that I grew up with would mock him and would imitate him, and he would have a big cigar, and they would talk like that. And every time he would introduce a singer and the band would play, he would say, "Maestro, music, please." I still love that. He seemed like a nice man. Anyway, getting back to the Avon Theater, most of the times the films were screened on Sundays because most people were off, and so they would have a double feature, and it would be films from the 1960s or the early 70s, or even that time at the current time, which was the early 1970s. And some were comedies, some were drama, and a couple were in color. Most of the time were black and white. And I remember a couple of movies. And one was it was something about the war. And then at the end there was one at the end of the movie. I mean, like a spoiler alert, there was a man that got shot in the head, and you see blood dripping out. Oh, it was awful, for a kid, but it was only for a split second, and then he dropped dead. And then there was another movie. It was in color. It was about three men dating their girlfriends, but I think the girlfriends were dating other guys, and the three men were their boyfriends. That is, they were jealous, and they dressed up as women to spy on them. I thought it was funny. I loved that. It seemed corny at the time, but it was entertaining. The audience loved it. They were laughing, and it was fun. I don't remember the name of the movie. I don't know. I got to ask my mother about that. But what I remember, the interior of the theater was beautiful. The concession stand displayed an assortment of candy and the smell of popcorn. Oh, it was wonderful. Like every old-fashioned movie theater, you would smell that. And there were times when the movie was over that ended early. My mother didn't want to cook, so across the street was a Jack in the Box restaurant. And at the time they were all over Chicagoland, and we went there for dinner. And at the time they had these stained glass drinking glasses, and my mom bought 3 of them for me and my brothers, and we kept them for a long time. But Eventually, they were worn out. They got shattered, but they're collector's items. You can find them on eBay. And I remember one item on the menu at Jack in the Box was called the Jack Steak. I don't think they make that anymore. And I remember the advertising, and we had hamburgers then, but I don't really remember how the taste was. So it was fun. And Jack in the Box is still around, but not in Chicago. It's on the West Coast. From what I heard, when I've heard from people that commented, they like. There's some located in southern Illinois, like around the St. Louis area, in Missouri, which I think it's true. But then I heard rumors they were going to bring it back in Chicago, but that hasn't happened yet. But a lot of people who lived in Chicago moved to the West Coast. They have them in California and Arizona, and they said it's almost the same. And their tacos were great. They still are. Okay, if I ever visit there, I will try them. Okay. So that is it for the Avon Theater. Right now, I'm going to talk about Space Angel, the cartoon. Now, this is an interesting show. This show is similar to Clutch Cargo. If everyone who grew up in Chicago would remember that, they use a technique called the Synchrovox lip. And where they show the cartoons and the lips would move. It's kind of creepy to most people. And to some, it's very entertaining and it's funny. And right now, I'm going to play the introduction of the show. And it's from 1962. So when I play this, it'll bring back wonderful memories to everyone. So here it is.
Exciting adventure in outer space with Scott McCloud. Space Angel.
Okay, I'm back. I hope you enjoyed the introduction of Space Angel. Before I talk about Space Angel, I forgot to mention about a couple of things about the Avon Theater. After the Greek films ran during the time when it was at the Avon Theater, they stopped doing that, and then they returned to American films in the late 70s, excuse me. And then the theater closed in the mid-1980s, and now it is a church. And the building is still there, so if you drive around in the area, you would see it. It's you could recognize it, but it's been renovated and changed. Okay, now we go back to Space Angel. That TV series started in early 1962 and ran through 1964. And they used the same technique for the Synchrovox lip technique they used at Clutch Cargo. And I will talk about Clutch Cargo in a later podcast episode. The show was about three astronauts who work for the Earth Bureau of Investigation's Interplanetary Space Force. And the spaceship was named the Starduster. The crew was Captain Pilot Scott McCloud, also known as the Space Angel. There was electronics communications expert Crystal Mace, and also the Scottish-born strong guy Gunner Engineer Taurus, and he was voiced by Al Smith, who played Otis the Drunk on the Andy Griffith Show. Interesting. Well, he did a lot of voices, so he was a very interesting actor. And the Space Angel was a secret identity. Scott McCloud had an eye patch, and when he appeared as Space Angel, he would lower the dark-tinted visor on his helmet to conceal his identity. And the show ran 5 minutes each. They had they would show an episode per day, and they would have a climax on Friday. And they did that on Garfield Goose and Friends. And they were like cliffhangers. And, when I watched that during Garfield Goose when I was a kid, I loved it. It was like in the old days of cliffhangers when you went to the theater and they had those serials and in the movies. And the Space Angel was serialized, and it ran for a long time. And they battle a lot of enemies. The main antagonists on the show were the Athenians. They were a model of a combination of ancient Rome and Sparta. And their planet looked like something from ancient Greece or Rome. And they were dressed in togas and armor, Corinthian-style helmets, and they had blaster rifles. And the other antagonist was Zora, the evil queen of space, and she looked like Nefertiti. And her henchmen were the general and the major. And so it was interesting, and I love the show, and you can still find it on YouTube. You can see pretty much all the episodes. It ran about 260 episodes, but they were 5 minutes long, so actually it was 52 episodes for the stories, that is. Okay. And I remember watching it on Garfield Goose and Friends, where Fraser Thomas put the little screen theater, and he would showcase cartoons, and he would show the Funny Company, Journey to the Center of the Earth. Now that's an interesting subject. We'll talk about that someday. Space Angel, Sinbad the Sailor Man, the Mighty Hercules. He would show Pink Panther. I remember that. I can't think of anything else, but they were entertaining. I don't think Space Angel was shown on Bozo's Circus. I don't think so. I don't remember. Or Ray Rayner. Probably Ray Rayner. Probably. Okay. So that is all for Space Angel. Now I will talk about Ernie Banks. And Ernie Banks was Mr. Cub and Mr. Sunshine. And he was a wonderful baseball player. He played shortstop, and then he was a first baseman. He started playing for the Cubs in 1951, I think. No, I'm sorry, 53. Oof, early. Before that, he played for the Kansas City Monarchs. That was the Negro League, and that was there for a couple of years. But he was on the Cubs that was his only major team he played. And he was born in Dallas, Texas. He had the second of 12 children. And then when he was in high school, he played basketball, football, track, played softball. He was an all-around athlete. He was pretty good. And then in 1953, he signed up with the Cubs, and he was 22 years old, and he was the Cubs' first black player. And the others, there was Jackie Robinson, who played for the Brooklyn Dodgers. Excuse me. Anyway, I remember watching Ernie Banks when I was growing up on WGN Channel 9 when the Cubs were on. I'm not a big baseball fan, but I know the game, and when you watch him, he was magic. He was wonderful, and he was beloved by not just Chicago Cub fans, but White Sox fans and all baseball fans, and he played till 1971. And every time he would hit a home run, Jack Burkhouse, the announcer, would say, "Hey, Mr. Cub." I remember that. Oh, that was nice, very nice. And he'd be interviewed after the game on the 10th inning show with Jack Burkhouse and any other announcers. Mostly it was him. Also, he was advertised in Pro's Pizza that Ron Santo owned the business. That's probably a collector's item. Anyway, and then he got into business, and then he worked for the Seaway National Bank in 1966, and he invested into a lot of business ventures. And then he became, he was on the CTA, on the board, the Chicago Transit Authority. And there's a picture of him circling around on eBay that he is a bus driver, and he's in the CTA bus. I thought that's kind of cool to see that. And then him and his partner, his name was Bob Nelson, they become the first black owners of a Ford Motor Company dealership. And I remember the one was on 76th Street and Stony Island. I think it was around 75th Street. It was right near where my old church was located, St. Constantine and Helen on Stony Island Avenue. And he was probably had it by the time our church moved. And Then, so he just retired in 1971, and then he made personal appearances. And whenever he visited Wrigley Field, or he was a guest for Jack Burkhouse, or when Harry Carey did the announcing for the Cubs, he was there, and he was very polite, very gentlemanly, soft-spoken. Oh, wonderful man, wonderful man. And then he died in 2016, I believe. No, 2015. I'm sorry. I'll get the right date. Yes, he died January 23rd, 2015, at the age of 83. He is buried in Graceland Cemetery, not too far. It's on the north side, not too far from Wrigley Field. And that was a sad day when he died, because that was part of a legacy that's gone. And, there are very few baseball players, especially for the Cubs, that were like him, that had that talent. There was Anthony Rizzo now, and Chris Bryant. Now they don't play for the Cubs anymore, which is terrible. I mean, it's like, like the fans were like thrown under the bus because when they were traded. I mean, that's awful. Because I like those guys. They're good players, good men. Okay, so that'll be all for today. For episode 54. For Fantasy Chicagoland Stories and like I said before, this is episode 54, season 3. I want to make a couple things to mention. One, we had some celebrity deaths this week. There was Charlie Watts, from the drummer from Rolling Stones. He was 80 years old. He was wonderful. He seemed like a nice guy. He seemed very subdued compared to Mick Jagger and Keith Richards, because those guys are party boys. Probably still are. But he was a family man, and he kept to himself, and he was a wonderful drummer. He had his own jazz band, which he did entertain in Chicago many times. And the other person that passed away was Michael Nader. He was an actor who played Dexter on the 1980s primetime soap Dynasty. I remember watching Dynasty religiously every Wednesday night. It was one of my favorite 80s primetime soap. They had Dallas, Knots Landing, Falcon Crest, The Colbys, ran for 2 years. I love those shows. And he was in the Beach movies with Annette Funicello and Frankie Avalon. And also in the TV series Gidget, based on the movie Gidget, that stars Sally Field. It ran for one season in 1965 to 1966. Also this week, one of my favorite meteorologists, Andy Avalos, he retired after 33 years. I remember watching him on Channel 7 in the 80s, and then he quit, then he came back. Well, first he was on Channel 7, then he went to Channel 5, then he quit, and then he returned, and now he's gone. So, best of luck on your retirement, Andy. I like you very much. You're a good man. Okay, that'll be all for today. Right now, another thing I want to mention, like I run a lot of people know that I run a Facebook page, Van Chicagoland. I also run a group, and right now my group has over 78,000 members so far, and people love the group. I post the same things on my page, but sometimes when you run a group or page, but this happens mostly in the group that you're the admin, you do find a couple of rotten eggs in there, bad apples, that want to post political stuff. There's nothing to do with a vintage Chicago. I'm trying to be careful in selecting and approving posts. It's not easy. It's not easy because, Chicago's famous for politics, but I try to minimize that. I know it's historical. And if it's something generic, I will not approve it. Like, do you remember, I can't think of, like, some candies or like something like that. Somebody tried to post something from New Jersey, and it had nothing to do with Chicago. Go figure. Anyway, so I'm trying to be fair. If you have questions, just message me. I'm on Facebook. Also, September is Bozo Circus Month. That would be probably next week. Oh, actually this week, excuse me. Yeah, it's coming up in a couple of days. So I will create a video, write a story on my blog, Fan Chicago blog, and do a podcast or two. And I'll probably talk about the people that work there. at Bozo Circus, like Ned Locke, Bob Bell, Roy Brown, Wizzo the Wizard, which is Marshall Brodeen. I would mention those. It would be kind of interesting. So I'll probably do a podcast, maybe 2 or 3, about Bozo Circus. So September would be an interesting month. It'll be the 60th anniversary of the debut of Bozo Circus on WGN Channel 9 in Chicago. So it'll be a lot of fun. Okay. That'll be all for today. This is Pete Costanis. I'm your host for Van Chicagoland Stories. I hope to join you soon. I don't think I'll do a podcast on Tuesday. I usually do. I think I'm busy. I probably have some errands to do on that day. Probably the next, the Labor Day weekend. Probably have a couple. So we'll see. Okay, this is me signing off, and here is Ray saying bye-bye for now. Take care, everybody. Goodbye.
We have to go. Bye, bye, bye.